Hi there, Kimberly Flanagan of Kimberly's Quilts. I've been doing a series of videos on how to do a crazy quilt in the hoop project by setting it all up in Embrilliance and then exporting it to my embroidery machine. There's a whole series on that. It's a 4-part series here on YouTube. I was teaching 2 nights ago, and one of my students said to me, I really like the video series, but do you have any tips or tricks on, I don't like how you have the pentagon as the center shape. In the center of my crazy quilt block, I actually started with a pentagon and then let it go off of that. So we started talking and she's like, I don't like that shape. So do I have to manually draw other shapes and then save them to bring them into the center if I wanted an octagon or a hexagon or a different shape than what Embrilliance has preloaded? So I started showing her how you can use the shape functions to draw different shapes. And she was like, oh my gosh, that's so easy. But I had no idea that it did that. You should make a video. So here I am making a video on how to optimize and get the most out of the shape tools and the shape features within Embrilliance. I'm going to share my screen here. So it's real quick. It's real easy. This is going to be a real short video, but I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So here we are in Embrilliance, and I'm going to move my screen out of the way. So in Stitch Artist, this is where I have the drawing tools. So these are all of the drawing tools, and here are where I got the shapes. So if I click this little arrow, you will see that there's a square, a circle, a pentagon, a spiral, and a star. This was the shape that I was using. And this was where she was confused and said, I don't want a pentagon, I want an octagon or a hexagon. What she didn't like was that if I were to draw this, it would have 5 sides to it. She wanted something that was had 6 or even 8 or more sides. So I showed her real quick. I said, okay, so if I come in here and I select that shape and then I draw it, you can see here that I have my 5-sided pentagon. But I showed her, I said, right over here, there's this little place here in your properties menu that says sides. That's the number of sides. So if I wanted to have, say, a 7-sided shape, I could just use that. I can make it a smaller. I can make it only 3 sides, and I've got a triangle. I can make it go all the way up to 20 sides, and it almost starts to look like a circle with just these little slight angles in there. But you can use this slider in here to change the angles and the number of sides that you have in here at any time to change this shape. So she was very impressed by that and thought that was pretty cool, and that she wanted something that more was representative of this. So that quick and that easy, she could change the pentagon that I was using, the 5-sided shape, and make it exactly what she wanted for the center of her crazy block. So I started thinking about it as class went on, and I was like, wait a minute, if she didn't know about that, did she know about the other features on the other shapes? So let me get a blank screen here and let's go through them. If you start with the square, if we come in here and we draw our square, instead of our pentagon, we have our square shape. But what happens if I want rounded corners? I can come over here, and if you see corner radius, what if I start changing that? That's how I get a square with rounded corners. What happens if I take it to a negative number? That's how I can start making unique shapes of like frames and stuff. So that quick and easily, I can change my square to actually have rounded corners or inverted rounded corners. She wasn't aware of that either. She actually wasn't aware of any of the customizations you could do to any of the shapes. So let's do the next one. What can you do if you were to actually use the circle. If I draw a circle on here, you'll notice that there's nothing over here in the properties file. The circle doesn't have enough distinct differences that you can change any of the radiuses or anything. The only thing you can really do here is make it an oval or a circle or an oval this way, but that doesn't require any property changes. That's just resizing your design. Okay, so let's look at the next one. What if I wanted this spiral? We already did our pentagon and showed the different sides. What about my spiral? What if I were to come in here and draw my spiral? Now let me move it back into the center of the screen so you can see it. If you look over here, I have a spiral gap. I can change the gap within my spiral. You'll see here what that means. Here they're closer together. Okay, there's a lower gap. Or I can make it farther apart. So I can actually modify the number of circles that are in here, making it more or less closer together or further apart with the gap. What about the interior? This I think is a pretty cool function. Right now I have 100% of my spiral in here, but what if I wanted part of the center empty so that I could maybe put a design in there? I can come in here and I can start hollowing out the center of my spiral by just putting in the interior percentage. Playing with this will allow me to have the spiral going, you know, as little or as much as I want, fully or hardly any. But what is this little reverse button? I want you to notice right now that my spiral starts here and it goes clockwise. So if this were a clock, it's going to go to 6 and then it's going to go to 7, 8, 9. What if I hit reverse? Now it's going from 5 to 4 to 3. So it's reversing the direction of the spiral. She was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Never knew any of this over here existed. So we have one left. So let's go and open up a new page here. And we have left the star. If you look at the star, when most of us draw it, this is what we end up with. We end up with this star here, and it's 5 points. But what if I come over here and I change the number of points that I have? What if I come over here and say I want a 4-pointed star? What if I come over here and say I want a 12-pointed star? You can actually modify the number of points on your star and making it something pretty custom all the way up to 20 points and all the way down to 3 points. What happens if, let's put it back up to about 6. What happens if I do interior percentage? Watch what happens to the center of my star as I make it smaller. The what I call the arms of the stars become longer. Or what happens if I make it the center and interior percentage larger? Now it's not a more wide open. So I can actually create a huge variety of shapes based on using the customization here on the right and the properties file. On all of these, except for the circle, I can make these highly custom. So when she asked the question about how do I, she thought she was going to have to go in here and using her line tool, create a hexagon, save it, and then pull that in as the starting point for her block. But when I showed her this, she was just blown away. I hope that helps you guys start getting pretty creative with the use of the various shapes within Embrilliance. It really is a cool feature to allow you to customize a lot of things and do a lot of different things with your shapes. I hope that this is helpful. If so, please think about liking and subscribing to the channel so that as I develop more content and have more quick tips for you, that you can find them helpful. Thanks.